Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Vete, joined by Ricardo Martinez-Paz, and we've got another episode here for you guys, talking all things Steelers, talking all things Eagles, breaking down their matchups this past week, looking ahead to next week. Some big games for both of these teams, honestly. We're getting to that point of the season where really every game in the schedule really matters, especially kind of for where both of these teams are at. But we'll dive into all of that. Ricardo, how are you doing this morning, man?
Doing pretty well, man. This isn't really football related, but the U.S. won yesterday, so that was a big dub there for America.
Heyo.
But yeah, overall pretty good, man. How you doing?
Man, advancing to the knockout round. Netherlands, it's going to be a matchup against the Dutch. I like our chances. We'll see what happens, but yeah, man, that was definitely exciting nonetheless. I'm with you.
For sure.
Especially for how big of a soccer fan I know you are. I'm sure you're loving this time of the year right now.
Oh, I have the World Cup on my TV beside me. I love it, man.
Let's go. All in. All right, I love it. Sounds good. Well, let's get into some football talk. And you want to start with the Eagles this week? I think we started with the Steelers last week, and both these teams won. So if we want to start with the Eagles, we could dive into what they did this week against the Packers.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Okay, so first takeaway, really. The Eagles' O-line just absolutely manhandled the Packers front. It was just a clinic, and I didn't put this in my actual takeaway. I forgot to mention Jeff Stoutland, who deserves so much of this credit. He's the run game coordinator, the offensive line coach for the Eagles. And, oh, my God, like the big guys just ate all night long. They just pushed players. I mean, Kenny Clark and Jaron Reed did essentially nothing. They were made look like they didn't exist. They weren't in the game. 363 rushing yards. I mean, the O-line opened holes. I mean, got great push, moved defenders, pulled like so easily from plays. I mean, it was just a masterclass. The best performance from this O-line all season. I mean, they've had good performances overall, but this one was just, oh my God, it was just so fun to watch, and just bullying that front seven of the Packers. And really the only downside was the one penalty, which was a false start on Landon Dickerson. But other than that, I mean, they were just so dominant. It was ridiculous.
I got to give you the credit here, too, because, I mean, you've been calling it for a couple weeks now that they need to get back to the running game, need to get back to, handing the ball off to Miles Sanders and really going behind this great offensive line. And you said this was the game to do it. Do it against this Packers team because they could take advantage of it. And, I mean, man, the way that they flexed their muscles, I mean, they made it look like a JV squad out there that they were going up against.
Yeah, literally. And that sort of goes into my next takeaway, which kind of referred to it like Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. I mean, those two both rushed for over 100 yards. Hurts had 100 yards in the first quarter alone, finished with 158. Miles Sanders ran for 143, which is a career high, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, yeah, like I said, that none of that would have been possible without the O-line. But both had really strong games. I mean, Jalen Hurts broke Michael Vick's single game record of 130 rush yards. I think that was in 2010 against the Giants, the Miracle of the Meadowlands. And so, I mean, it was just, and like on top of that, Jalen Hurts had 2 touchdown passes. And I mean, 40 points, a 40 burger against the Packers. I mean, the Packers defense is like solid overall. I mean, obviously the run game was to be exploited, their weak spot. And I mean, the Eagles really just took it to them. And this offense performed, Jalen Hurts especially. I mean, he was named NFC Player of the Week, I believe, Offensive Player of the Week. So it's just, I love this kind of performance overall. It was just Jalen Hurts. Just he's definitely adding to his argument for MVP at least. So
yeah, absolutely. And didn't he break that record, that Michael Vick's record, by the third quarter?
Yes, by the third quarter.
In the third quarter before the start of the fourth quarter, which is just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, that's unheard of. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I love it.
I mean, I'll tell you what, this Packers team, they are in such an unenviable spot right now with the situation they have of Aaron Rodgers declining after you just gave him the extension. And
Yeah.
this defense has players on it, but I think the coaching staff really has to start to come into question a little bit as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Packers here, but man, they are in a rough spot right now.
Yeah, it's not looking good for them. I don't think they're going to make the postseason at this point. They got
At
to
this
win
point, I've
out,
kind
and
of
even
written them
then,
off.
even if you win out, you'd be 9-8, and that's maybe not even good enough.
I don't see them winning out, and I still think that the Giants and Commanders have wins left on the table to get in as that last wild card spot.
Yeah, exactly. So postseason's probably out of the question, but the future for Aaron Rodgers is definitely something that'll be worth talking about at some point. But that's for a later episode or something. But sort of my last takeaway is a bit more on the negative side. Special teams, I'm gonna kind of grill right here because they let up 3 long kickoff returns, set up the Packers near midfield, which kind of consequently led to the Eagles giving up points on those drives. And I mean, I realized after I typed this takeaway, I was like, really, this is the special teams' fault for allowing this many points. Yeah, the defense is supposed to stop the offense or whatever, but without those long returns, I feel like the Eagles' defense would have held up better. Definitely didn't help that they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and I mean. Reed Blankenship made a huge play. I'll give him that. But then he let up the Christian Watson long touchdown. So, I mean, it's the defense overall was okay. Run defense was a problem in the first half. A.J. Dillon, I think, had 8 yards per carry, some crazy like that. And he didn't even have that many snaps to begin with, or at least running the ball. And, when you allow 33 points, when both those units struggle, it usually results in a loss. But in this case, because the Eagles' offense was so good, they kind of were bailed out by it. But like I said, they were okay. The defense overall, they had 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. So it could have been a lot worse, but it definitely could have been a lot better overall from defense, but special teams should take the brunt of that, to be honest.
No, I'm with you. I think the initial blame definitely has to go to the special teams. This is something even the Steelers have dealt with a little bit, especially against the Colts. I thought you saw it. They had a couple really long kick returns that the Colts were able to, go deep into Steeler territory.
Yeah.
It's a really simple concept, but I mean, it's going to be easier for your defense to get stops and get the ball back to your offense when they're defending a longer field. When you put them in that rough spot, it only takes a couple first downs for them to just already be in field goal range at that point. So I'm definitely with you that the special teams deserves to take more of the blame here. But it is one of those things, where are you kind of at with this defense? Because again, I think we still kind of saw that the running defense of this Eagles team isn't exactly fixed at this point yet, which is also would still be a little bit of a concern for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at least against the run, it's still an issue. I'm still worried about it, even with Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph there. Ndamukong Suh had a few good plays. He blew up a few plays. But it's just the lack of consistency in stopping the run is what's concerning to me. There are reports that Jordan Davis may be coming back this week, but I doubt it. I feel like that's a bit too soon. I don't think he's been designated from IR at least, or if he was in IR. But
I just Googled it real quick to see what his status was, and just the Philadelphia Inquirer had an article here saying he's eligible to return from the IR, but all that Davis said was that he's feeling better and better each day, which to me says he's just if he was ready to come off the IR, it would be okay, he'd be I'm ready to go, I'll be out there Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think that's
not exactly
happening.
Booming confidence that he's going to be ready this week against the Titans.
Yeah, especially against Derrick Henry. It would be nice, but there's no point rushing him back when you have these veterans in who hopefully will play better, I guess, gel as a team altogether, or as the front four. But it's tough when you have injuries. It happens to everyone. Injuries happen everywhere, but feel like at this point the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. First, Goddard. I mean, Avonte Maddox is our slot corner, really good. And then C.J. Gardner Johnson with what is this, like lacerated kidney or something like that.
Lacerated kidney.
Yeah, like
which I mean that's also got to be pretty concerning for you. I mean, I know he said it. Like the reports have been, it's not going to be season ending, but I was reading something today that can be a pretty substantial, time that he's going to have to miss.
Yeah, I mean, it would suck. It would really be a big blow for the. I mean, he leads the NFL in interceptions, are led going into the game. I don't know that I don't really know much about that injury overall, but it's certainly not something you mess around with. It's it's a vital organ in the body, so you'd figure you gotta be like fully recovered before getting out on the field again. I don't know. He might miss the next 4 games. He might be put on IR. I don't know. If that's the case, I read something this morning. It was like maybe the Eagles should bring Malcolm Jenkins out of retirement, bring him into the team. I was like, oh, I never thought of that, but it's veteran help, I guess. But I don't know. If it's a long-term issue
at this point, but
no, if it's a long-term issue, if he's out long-term, or at least for the next few games, then maybe consider bringing in someone as like for depth purposes, because now you have Reed Blankenship, who, like I said, had his moments, good and bad moments, and Kayvon Wallace, who, he wasn't really. I mean, in the preseason, he really didn't stand out, and I was surprised he was even kept on the team to begin with. So, apart from Marcus Epps, really the depth is not there.
Well,
So,
I mean, hey, maybe you could bring back Jaquiski Tart. I
don't know. Oh man,
no, I'm just messing around. But I mean, I don't know what's out there on the market, but
I don't either. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge blow if he's unable to, if he's out for an extended period of time here.
Yeah, it would be, but we'll see what happens within the next few days. If anything happens transaction wise.
I'm not sure if you had anything else that you wanted to bring up on the Eagles. I did have 2 other points I wanted to run by you. I'm going to save all the Derrick Henry stuff for when we preview the Titans game.
Well, Jalen Hurts is player of the game, obviously, so that is never a question. Do I need to say anything else about it? Nah. So, yeah, that's all I got.
How have you been feeling about AJ Brown recently? I know, like, he's still gotten 2 touchdowns in his last 4 games. But his receiving yards and his targets have been down in the last 4 weeks. Is that at all a concern about you, or do you think it's just more of this offense going through its, different kind of getting different players involved? Now that they don't have to defend, now that defenses don't have to defend Dallas Goedert, I don't know if maybe they can cue in more on AJ Brown in the pass game. But what do you make of the fact that his production's kind of dipped slightly over the last 4 games?
I wouldn't look too much into it. I don't think it's that big of a concern. I'm sure it's just more of, you like finding different players, using different players in a given week. But I mean, he's still really good. Like that, he's the talent. He's so talented. I mean, really, I'm not very concerned about that. Like connection between him and Jalen Hurts is, I mean, pretty damn impressive, pretty damn good. It's just the only thing that I'm concerned about really is the fumbles, but that like because he hadn't fumbled prior to, like, I think the last time he fumbled was back in 2020 prior to the last 2 games. So maybe that's a bit of a concern, but other than that, he's still like defenses are keying in on him, and that just opens up opportunities for Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins. I mean, Miles Sanders. I mean, the tight ends haven't really done anything, so it makes. It gives more opportunities for other players, I'll say, but it also shows that how good of a receiver AJ Brown, if defenders are keying in on him, having double coverage or at least a safety back defending helping out the corner, whoever's defending AJ Brown. So I think it's fine. He'll be fine. I'm not worried about it.
I agree with you for the most part. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he kind of goes out and tries to have a big game this week going up against his former team.
Yes,
one other thing I wanted to bring up to you real quick. I've always been around the holidays. I like Michael Bublé. Bruce Springsteen singing Santa Claus is coming to town is great. But, I mean, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Jason Kelsey. I mean, what are you doing to me here? I mean, It was pretty good. It was pretty good. The first time I heard their songs last night, the Christmas songs they sang, my housemate played it to me, and he was like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think of this Christmas song?" I was like, "Oh, like who's singing it?" Like I genuinely thought it was a cover by a serious artist doing these Christmas songs, and it was Jason Kelsey just letting the vocal cords rip.
I haven't listened to the full thing. I've only heard like bits of it.
I've
But
only heard
I
bits of
think
it too, but I mean, it's pretty impressive nonetheless.
no, it is. Yeah, I really like the concept. It's like just so I don't know. I just love that. That just shows how close the offensive linemen are really, and just showing off the vocals and like they're talented in more ways than one, or whatever you want to say about it. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's
Totally unrelated from football. It's just cool that they're doing something like this. It's different. I like it.
I like it. I like it too.
It shows the human side of it. You know, it's not all just about football. You know, they love Christmas too. They love music. So I love it though.
They love Christmas too. Mic drop on that. We'll move over to the Steelers now. My first takeaway from this Steelers win over the Colts. Hey, it was a good win. They got the job done. They really controlled the entire first half. And when push came to shove in the second half, they got the points that they needed in order to pull ahead, and the defense came up big on that final drive. My first takeaway is just the fact that the running backs, the depth of the running backs, you know, Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, they stepped up. Najee Harris went down early in this game after, you know, I believe he only had 10 carries and a touchdown on 35 yards before he went down with an injury. Jalen Warren was out coming into this game. And as a team, they still rushed for a combined 172 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Benny Snell coming in essentially was relegated to special teams exclusively at this point. He went for 62 yards on 12 carries and the go-ahead touchdown on a big third down late in the game in the fourth quarter. So a ton of credit has to go to him. Anthony McFarland, guy hadn't had a snap with the Steelers in exactly 365 days, 1 full year, came in 41 combined yards, both, you know, through the air and rushing the ball. So I give a lot of credit to these two guys to come in and be able to step in and kind of fill the shoes in the running game, which has been really the strong suit of the Steelers the past couple weeks, really since the bye. That's really been their bread and butter. You know, since they've kind of moved, since they've gotten through the bye week and into these last couple games here, running the ball is where they found success. And even with these two guys, they you know, McFarland and Benny Snell, ton of credit to them. They stepped up big time.
Yeah, I mean, against a pretty good Colts defense overall, that was encouraging to see. Those two running backs specifically step up in place of Najee Harris. I didn't see. You know if he's going to be out like at all, or if he's just going to miss like practice.
The Najee Harris one, I'll check real quick on what the status of Najee Harris is. See if there's any updates when I do a quick search here. But I know Jalen Warren, I think this was the second week in a row he's been out. Mike Tomlin said yesterday, I don't have a lot of information about Najee Harris's status. So it's something that, like, hey, yeah, you'd love to have those guys in. Obviously, no one's questioning that. But I will say, Benny Snell throughout his career, when you've given him enough touches, almost to like a starter level, you get him up around 15 touches a game, he's been able to go for decent chunks of yardage. So I do have some faith. And, you know, I was saying in preseason, the way that Matt Canada wanted to run this offense, I expected Anthony McFarland to be on the roster, but he ended up being relegated to the practice. Well, first they cut him, and then they re-signed him to the practice squad. But, you know, I'm not saying I have a ton of faith in these guys to keep it going. If it's going to be a long-term absence from both Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. But, I mean, I do have to say, it's not like Benny Snell has been completely unproductive when he's been called upon to be the lead back throughout his career.
Yeah, it was cool to see Snell. I mean, there was that 1 year he had a pretty good year, a pretty good season. I mean, just showing you like, hey, I'm still around. I can still run the ball. You know, like that's pretty cool to see that he did that well. Because he's pretty good overall when you give him the touches, like you said.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Steelers really haven't incorporated him into the offense, but you know, if this is the guy that we have down the depth chart, you know, I think he's a free agent at the end of the year. So you never, you know, he's probably going to end up going somewhere else. But the fact that he was our guy that's third on the depth chart, I mean, that's a really solid option that you can turn to and say, hey, we're going to give you the ball 15 times a game now that Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are out. Go get 70 yards for us. And, you know what? I mean, he's perfectly capable of doing it.
Yeah.
And, that kind of leads into kind of not my second takeaway, but it's all in the same point here. This offensive line has to get some credit. They really have not been a topic of criticism for me, really at all since really the first maybe week or two. I was highly critical of them in our preseason episodes. I
Yeah.
thought this was going to be the weakest point of the team, but it has not been the case. They've been very solid, especially in this game now being able to kind of go up against a solid Colts defensive line. I talked about how they were in the top 12, I believe, of pretty much all major defensive categories. And I believe they were in the top 10 against the run coming into this game. And, to still be able to be productive rushing the ball, I think a lot of the credit has to go not only to the players themselves, but to the fact that they've all been relatively healthy and the fact that they've been able to mesh, they've been able to play together as a unit they've developed. And I think that that's something where you see offensive line struggle throughout the season is when you've got interchangeable parts of guys that are getting injured. Outside of Mason Cole being down for a game, and I think Kevin Dotson might have missed a game or just some time during a game, they've really been the same group of starters all throughout the season. And I just looked up, again, I'm not big on Pro Football Focus, but it's a tool just to see, and especially for offensive line when there's not really a ton of stats to go by. Dan Moore Jr., 62.5 rating. This is on the season. James Daniels, 69.4 on the season rating. Mason Cole, 68.7 rating. Kevin Dotson, 63.2. And Chukwuekorfor, 60.9. So none of them are jumping off the page. But, the way that I see it, they're meshing as a unit. And this offensive line is basically, they're mid. They're mid. They're a mid offensive line. They're mediocre. And you know what? That's good enough for what the Steelers, I don't want to say it's good enough because, again, this is a Steelers team with 4 wins, all right? I'm not going to go and start praising them now. But the offensive line hasn't been the problem, and I got to give them some credit because they're a big reason why they won this game against the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you highlighted about the injuries, I mean, and, interchangeable stuff. I mean, we see that with, like, the Rams, like the Jets, a lot of teams with injuries on the offensive line, and then the Steelers and the Eagles, actually. I mean, both with pretty healthy offensive lines overall. That goes a long way into, like you said, meshing and chemistry and all that stuff. That really helps, and it only makes them get better, really, as the season progresses. And you just hope it kind of stays that way, or at least, health-wise. And they certainly will keep getting better as the season goes on with the games that remain.
Yeah, I definitely love the way that they mesh, and I mean, especially the fact that, I'm going to get into that final drive in a second where the Steelers took the lead. But Mason Cole even came out and said when they got the call that it was 3rd and 2, he was like, the offensive line was fired up. He was like, that's what we as offensive linemen, we'll go pick up 2 yards and get this thing done and get Benny Snell into the end zone. And that kind of leads to my second point here is my second takeaway is, how the Steelers were able, they dominated the first half. They came back in the second half. The Colts put up some points, eventually got the 1-score lead. And right after the Colts took the lead, Kenny Pickett, and I think this is a sign of his progression here a little bit, stepped up, didn't have a banner day throwing the ball, didn't light up the stat sheets. He was 20 for 28, only threw for like 175 yards, something like that. But when push came to shove, it was time for the Steelers to go down and get this thing done. He led the drive down the field, made some passes. The Steelers rushed for some yards, and they got the job done. And I think that's a sign of the progression of a young quarterback when you can say, hey, our team is the better team in this game. Let's go and get this thing down the field into the end zone. And they handed it off to Benny Snell on that 3rd and 2, and they went and picked up the 2 yards, got into the end zone. And I really like to see, I think we're really starting to see Kenny Pickett progress from when we saw him early in the game early in the season, when he was maybe a little bit more, not necessarily overwhelmed, but maybe the game was moving a little bit faster. We're starting to see him really make some throws, and it feels like he has more of a presence about him where he's managing the game a bit better, and I think that's certainly a step in the progression of a young quarterback.
Yeah, just watching him that game, he seemed a bit more in command, a bit more comfortable, even if he was scrambling. Like, even when he scrambled, he picked up some good yardage, just kept drives going. So, I mean, keeping the Colts off the field and the defense overall longer on the field. He didn't commit any turnovers either. So that's certainly something encouraging too.
I think the word that perfectly sums up like what we saw from him is he really played with poise. He really played with great poise. And I think that's what you were just alluding to. And I think we especially saw it on that final drive. And you just said this the same thing. No turnovers in this game. And look at the last 4 games since the bye week. 1 interception in the last 4 games. Actually, that dates back to the Eagles game too. But since including the Eagles game and their last 3 against the Saints, Bengals, and then against the Colts just the other day, just 1 interception in that time after throwing, I believe it was something like 7 in his first however many games he played. So I really like to see where we're kind of getting with him. And that's why I say I feel like he's getting to the point now where he's almost playing like a little bit of a managerial state where he's not turning the ball over and he's doing enough to put points on the board. And when your offensive line is playing well, it's a formula that the Steelers should be able to win games. And we'll get into their next game against the Falcons in a little bit and what their schedule looks like down the road. But this was a game that the Steelers, they were the better team coming in, I felt. And they showed their muscles. They showed that they were the better team in this game. And they got the job done. And, my last point here, I want to give some credit to the defense on my last takeaway. They stepped up after the Steelers went ahead. There was still time left on the board. And Alex Highsmith specifically, he stepped up and made some big plays on that final Colts drive. And overall, the Steelers defense was able to get a stop. They were helped out by Jeff Saturday's mismanagement of the clock a little bit. And, running the ball to Jonathan Taylor on a 3rd and 3, I believe was the yardage that was left. But you know what? The Steelers team, I'll tell you what, a lot of people may think that they're a bad team, and maybe they are. Maybe they're not, in that realm of teams that's a playoff tier team. But 7 of their 11 games have been a 1-score game. They're 3-4 in those games. You turn it around and you make it, if you make that a 5-2 in 1-score games, you're looking at this team being firmly in the playoff hunt. And it may be too late now. I said last week, I think it's too late for them to really make a true push for a wild card spot. But they've been in every game that they've played in outside of the Bills game. And, you can make the case maybe they were out of the Eagles game. But up until that 4th quarter, it was still fairly close. Yeah. And, I mean, if like I said, 3-4 in 1-score games, this is a trend for this team. You look back at even that Browns game in week 2 or 3, whatever it was. The only reason that wasn't a 1-score game was because of the last-second touchdown on the fumble by the Steelers. They beat the Saints by 10, so that was only a 10-point margin. That was a 10-point margin. So this team is, they've been playing scrappy football in the games that they've been in. And outside of the Bills and Eagles, who are 2 teams that I feel are on a different tier than most other teams in the NFL, the Steelers have held their own against all their opponents this season. And it's just unfortunate more of those 1-score games haven't gone their way, which would have allowed them to be more in the playoff conversation. But at this point, like I said, that's probably out of the realm of possibilities here.
Yeah, sort of going back to the defense, that I didn't think that one fumble at the 1-yard line by Matt Ryan, I mean, and then Chris Wormley recovered it or whatever. That one was a huge turning point. I mean, the Colts could have easily scored on that drive.
No doubt.
And then James Pierre earlier in the game had that crazy interception that looked like it hit the ground, but he got his hands under that. I mean, like that was 2 big plays there. Defense make plays. The Colts defense didn't make any. That was a big reason why the Steelers won, really.
And I mean, I'll also give some credit to Arthur Mollett in this game too, because he's a guy that's come out under a little criticism lately. But I mean, 10 total tackles. He led the team in this game. He also had a sack and a tackle for loss. So he kind of stepped up too and played well for the defense here. And what can I say, man? I think that this team is a little bit of an enigma because I think that they are not. I don't see them as a team that's in the bottom third of the NFL this season. But just because they've lost so many close games, that's very possibly where they're gonna end up. And I'm not gonna harp on this forever because you can't change the past. But just unfortunate when you go back and look at what could have been.
Yeah, I agree. But...
So my player of the game was Benny Snell. I gave it to him because he stepped up and got that go-ahead touchdown. And Snell, yeah, baby, let's go. And he might have to step up again this week. So, that being said, that's all I have on the Steelers. If we want to start looking ahead to these next matchups here in week 13.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's get that going.
All right, sounds good. You want to start with the Eagles, or should I just continue on with the Steelers?
I don't know. I feel like you should continue on.
All right, I'll let it keep rolling here. So I don't have a ton to say, with this game against the Falcons, other than, it's another game where if you want to get back into just kind of relevancy, I mean, All right, look, let's be frank here because I'm dancing around the question here. I know I wrote the Steelers off last week. They're 4-7 right now. If you can get to 9-8, you only lose two more. You only lose one more game the rest of the season. You'll be in the conversation for potentially making the wild card. You have to win this week against the Falcons. If you lose this week
Yes.
against the Falcons, then I think then you're at 8 losses and you still have 3 games against division rivals, including the Browns with Deshaun Watson back and 2 against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Like that. That's where it's truly going to come to an end, and we're going to start talking about like, okay, let's kind of evaluate, how guys are doing and how it trends towards next season. You win this week against the Falcons, you sit there 5-7, and then you have a huge game at home against the Ravens the following week. Then you've got Panthers and Vegas. So you know what? I'm going to say it. Where the Steelers have put themselves in this spot, you got to go on a 5-game win streak here. You just beat the Colts. You got to win 5 in a row here if this is going to stay, playoff relevant. That's essentially what it comes down to. And I think that you got 2 games against the Ravens. The one at home is the one that you really have to win if something's going to come here. But it all starts this week against – I don't want to say it all starts this week. It should have started 2 weeks ago against the Bengals, really. But you got the loss there. I'm not going to harp on that. Go out there, beat the Falcons, and then you never know what's going to happen. And the Falcons, their defense, you can beat this defense. They're in the bottom half when it comes to points per game allowed. They're also in the bottom half of the league when it comes to rush yards per game allowed.
Yep.
So even if it is Benny Snell, stick to that formula. I think that this guy can really, if you give him the 15 to 20 touches a game, he'll put up the yards for you that you need. And I think that this defense, you can come in there, find a way to slow down Marcus Mariota, find a way to slow down some of the key weapons like Drake London or Cordero Patterson on this Falcons offense. You can hem this offense in. You can put up yards. You can put up points against this Falcons defense. So that's what I'm saying is kind of the formula for them to win. It's in Atlanta. This is a game you got to win if you still have any semblance of being, 500 or being, in the distance a playoff team. But, again, that's not super likely. But without a win here, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you just touched on all the points I was also looking for. I mean, the run game is going to have to push this team to win. Like you said, Falcons D's not, especially against the run, not very good. And then you also said Mariota. He just not the best passer, but he's electric as a runner as well. So that's something that's going to be a bit definitely keeping him in the pocket is going to be the focus. And then you touched on Cordero Patterson. Thinking about it on special teams, at least, needs to be like the Steelers need to be careful of him on kick returns, especially
because they've struggled recently in special teams, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be another factor in this game, but it's definitely winnable.
Yeah, it's winnable, and it's honestly, I don't want to say it's a must win until you're, up against the brink of being eliminated, but I don't know. I don't know any formula that the Steelers can then, go to the playoffs unless they win this game. Really, it comes down to, in my mind, the only way that they're going to have a shot is if they win, at the very least, all 3 of their games remaining against non-division foes, which is the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Raiders. And, that would get you to 500. And then it comes down to, all right, can you beat your division rivals 2 out of the 3 times you play them? So this is a game. Non-division rival, you got to win it in my mind. I think it's as simple as that, and I think they've got the tools to do it. It's just a matter of let's see if it can all come together.
Yep, execution. They can do it, though.
Sounds good, man. That's all I have on here. Let's move over to the Eagles game this week, and a big one against the Titans.
Man, this game has me really nervous, as if the last one didn't. But the first thing, obviously, is going to be stopping Derrick Henry. The offense runs through him. Everyone knows it. And even when defenses know it, he'll still run all over you. But other than that, last week, the Bengals limited him to only 38 yards on 17 carries. But still, he could have had that really long. He had like the screen pass or whatever, and then he fumbled it and recovered by Traylon Burks, which I'll get into a little later. But yeah, he has 1,048 rush yards, 10 touchdowns. Dude's the biggest threat in the field, literally, and figuratively. So, really, yeah, it's I say this every week. I swear to God, I always say this every week. Just stop the run game. It's so much easier said than done, especially for these Eagles. They struggled in the first half. I feel like against the Packers in the second half, I think they did a little better job of stopping the run, but they can't let Derrick Henry just go off on them because then it opens up the play action game, and then it's just a lot harder for the defense to predict what's going to happen, and then it could get ugly. And it could turn into another track meet like last week or last game, I'd say. So yeah, he's the biggest threat for sure. I guess. I mean, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, really.
I'll just say, man. I mean, some of the numbers that these running backs the Eagles have gone up against that they've put up in recent weeks, I'd be concerned about this matchup. This is one. This is one that if they hadn't already lost to the Commanders, this is one I'd be looking at as saying this is where this first loss could come. The one thing I'll say they have the benefit of is they are still playing at home, which is a bit of an advantage. But, I mean, you're talking about a track meet. Well, I want to know what you think the Eagles' formula on offense is. Do you think it's to go right back up against them with Miles Sanders running the football? Because, I mean, we've seen that the Titans in the past, they have a formula when they go up against high-octane offenses, drain the clock, run the football, don't let the other team's offense get on the field. So I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of a back and forth of who just kind of controls time of possession and can just punch the ball into the end zone more than the other team. Because if I'm the Eagles there and I'm only getting on the field for, spurts here and there because the Titans are rattling off 7-8 minute drives, that's not a formula I wouldn't take my chances there.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be offense is going to have to rely on the run game again, especially when the Titans are pretty damn good overall against the pass. They're fourth in pass yards per game allowed, 175.9. And they're middle of the pack against the run, 122.9 yards per game allowed. So it's looking like it's going to have to be another big day from the rushing attack, whether that be Miles Sanders or Jalen Hurts or both of them or all of the above, all of the other running backs. It's going to have to come from them. And they have Jeffrey Simmons, who's just a monster up there. He's the biggest threat for that defense. I mean, overall, the Titans defense is pretty good. They have some good players, Amani Hooker, Kevin Byard. That's a solid safety tandem. And the Titans have only allowed 17 points per game in like the last 6 games or something like that. So it's going to be a really tough test. Probably the toughest since the Cowboys game, I would say.
I 100% agree with you, dude. This is what we were talking. I remember bringing this point up to you, and obviously it was a little bit more relevant before they lost to the Commanders. But we were talking around, I think, the Steelers game. Like, hey, let's fool around when we get to Thanksgiving and see, what we think that what this Eagles team is going to finish here. This is a game, dude. I hate to be that guy. I'm going to be pulling for the Eagles to lose, but if I was betting on this, I'd be betting on the Titans. Just with the way that the Eagles defense has played, it doesn't sound like, especially the defense against the run, and the fact that it doesn't sound like Jordan Davis is going to be back. It doesn't look like Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph are fully meshed into the defensive line yet. And I mean, the Titans just have this formula when they go up against high octane offenses. So unless Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts can kind of dominate the day running the football and kind of control the clock just as much as the Titans do, and just keep the Titans from punching into the end zone, bend but don't break. It's a tough matchup, and I think that is what it's going to come down to: is can the Eagles match the running game of the Titans, and can they punch it in and have their defense bend but don't break against Derrick Henry and the Titans?
Yeah, I agree. Also, Eagles just opened the practice window for Jordan Davis, so
they did
potential return, like literally just happened. So yeah,
okay.
So
hey,
I still don't think he's
that's
gonna
good
play.
news. That's good news.
It is. Yeah, it is, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Moving on to the last point, AJ Brown revenge game. That's probably the biggest storyline overall. I mean, he had.
Why is this game at 1 o'clock, dude? Why is this game at 1 o'clock?
I don't know, man. Like, these are two pretty damn good teams.
Like, if you're NBC, let me look at what's the Sunday night game this
I
week?
don't even remember
Even
what
if
the
you're,
Sunday night game is.
I know Monday Night Football's got that new weird flex thing where they're allowed to flex games, dude. All right, I mean, it's the Cowboys that are playing on Sunday night, so they're
Oh, the
not going to flex
Colts.
that out. They're playing the Colts, bro. Like,
Yeah.
and then this Monday, dude, this Monday is Saints Bucks. Like, I don't want that garbage. Like, I have so full disclosure to anybody that watches this in the future. I'm on the ski team at Marist, and we are hosting tryouts for the new recruits on Sunday. I'm not going to be able to watch this game. I'd be watching this game over the Steelers game, frankly. This is such an enticing matchup. This is going to be you're 100% right. Biggest test the Eagles have had since the Cowboys, and like the fact that it's at 1:00 is such a drag, man. And especially for
Yeah.
the Titans too. They were looking so good, and then last week the tough loss against the Bengals. Like now it's like let's see how they respond. Like can they respond and show, hey, like we could still be a force in the AFC. Like don't sleep on us. So I'm. It sucks. It's at 1:00, man. The Eagles don't have
Yeah.
a single other night game the rest of the season.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Wait.
no, they have a 4:25 against the Cowboys week 16. That's
Oh,
it.
yeah, that is true. Shoot, I didn't think about that. Whatever. I mean, that's annoying. I mean, maybe they'll flex one of those games later on this season or something like that, but I don't know.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
AJ
But
Brown,
there's so many storylines. Yeah, I'm sorry. You were on the AJ
no,
Brown
you're
point, but you just got me
good.
go. There's so much to like about this game. It's such a juicy matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the dude came from Tennessee. He was traded in the offseason or during the NFL draft, to be more specific, for a 2022 first round and third round pick. The first round pick turned into Traylon Burks, which hasn't really panned out yet necessarily. And then Howie Roseman, obviously, the general manager of the Eagles, gave Brown a 4-year, $100 million extension. I feel like I mean, that's paid off tremendously. And then, like throughout the season, he's been tweeting out some things that look like shade at the Titans for like not paying him or whatever. Maybe he says there's no bad beef or like, there's no beef between them, but
Dude,
part of me is like, I don't know.
I think it's as simple as this. If you add AJ Brown back to that Titans roster, they are one of the best teams in the AFC.
Exactly.
I mean, last year they were the 1 seed in the AFC with him there. This Eagles team, I think that I wouldn't be shocked to say they have 2 or 3 more losses without AJ Brown. I think he adds that much more of a dynamic to their offense.
No, he's such a perfect fit for the Eagles, and there's no one on the field that's going to want this game more than AJ Brown. I mean, he's just going to go out and prove it to them. It's going to be difficult, like I said, because the Titans are good against the pass, and I'm sure that Mike Vrabel's defense is going to key in on him, especially, and limit whatever production he has on the field. So it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. AJ Brown against that secondary.
This game should be in prime time. I'm pissed.
Yeah.
I'm pissed. Give me a Thursday prime time in this matchup for all I care. I want to see this, man.
Yeah, man, it's a shame. Schedule makers did them dirty, but
they did do them dirty. I mean, honestly, you could have even gone 2 weeks back. You should have flexed it.
Exactly. Yeah, like Titans. I mean, yeah, both teams have like not very many losses, so
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, after the Titans beat the Packers on Thursday night, they should have immediately been getting this game Eagles Titans flexed into prime time.
Yeah, but that's not the case, man. Yeah, it sucks, but it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be we're gonna go grind out the run game. It's just gonna be a physical battle, and that's what I want to see.
Another layer to this game, I'm curious to get your take on. This game is the last game the Eagles have at home until January.
Yes.
So how big is it to get this win now? Because then the next 3 weeks they're at New York, at Chicago, at Dallas, 3 in a row.
It's pretty big, especially when you just said, it's their last game last home game until January.
Literally until January. Literally until 2023.
Huge. Yeah, that's crazy. I actually never thought of it like that, but yeah, you are right. Yeah, it's big. It's big. Get the win at home, and then positive momentum going into the road games. It's going to be a tough stretch, being on the road for 3 straight games. But that's just how the schedule worked out. That just makes this game so much more important, especially in terms of Dallas. The Dallas game. If the Eagles lose the Dallas, I don't see Dallas losing anytime soon, honestly. And it could be. That matchup on Christmas Eve is going to be that much bigger. Oh goodness.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. You've got Titans at home this week. We just previewed the whole matchup. Then you're at New York against the Giants, a team that's fighting every game for their playoff lives. Then following that, you're in Chicago. The Bears, obviously, we don't know if Justin Fields, when he's going to be back fully healthy. There's talk it's, either week to week or it could be he's done for the season, but the Bears are just kind of holding that information. If he's back, that's one of the best running attacks in the NFL. We know the Eagles struggle against the run. Then following that on Christmas Eve, that huge rivalry matchup against the Cowboys and the Eagles in Dallas. Those 4 games, what are the Eagles doing? I'm putting you on the spot right now.
In terms of what, wins and losses?
Win, loss, yeah.
Oh, man. I want to give the next 3 wins. These next 3 games wins. I'm going to do that. And I hate that I might be giving the Eagles a loss against the Cowboys. I think I'm going to give it to them.
To win 3 games on the road.
That's what I'm saying.
On the road
it's
in a row.
The tail end of that stretch.
Yeah, I mean, dude, those, because the Giants are desperate. The Bears are great running the football, and the Cowboys are one of the best teams in the NFC. To have those 3 teams in a row on the road is a brutal stretch of the schedule here.
Yeah, they're not going to be easy at all, obviously. But I think they should be winnable, these next 3. They're all winnable. The Dallas game is going to be the toughest one since the Dallas game back. Well, actually, not even then. But that's going to be the toughest game of the season, may decide the division. So many other factors, the number 1 seed, there's just so much. You have to win these next 3 games to at least, even if you lose against Dallas, it's you still have that 1 game cushion above them in the division.
Yeah.
Oof, it's gonna be tough.
Honestly, I'm even looking to their last 2 weeks of the season. You're home against New Orleans. New Orleans might be fighting to still win the South at that point. And then you're home against the Giants, who may need that game to get into the playoffs. So that you're going to get some desperate teams. You're going to get a mix of desperate teams that are good running the football, and a really tough stretch on the road here to close out these last 6 games of the Eagles regular season. We're really going to see the true colors of this Eagles team come out here and see this is where we're going to see their true colors. And you know what? It's going to be a real test for them before the playoffs start.
Oh yeah, I'm nervous about it, but
I hate to give you all this anxiety right at the start of your day when we've still got a couple days before even the Sunday matchup against the Titans. But
I take every game into context. it's every game's important. So
all right,
week
man.
by week, it's fine. Game by game, we'll be fine.
Good stuff. You got anything else you want to add before we wrap things up here?
Nah, that's all I got, man.
You're all good, bro. All right. I love the close of this episode, breaking down both of these matchups. Hey, the next time we talk, hopefully we'll see an Eagles win against the Titans. We'll see a Steelers win against the Falcons, and we'll see a Team USA win against the Netherlands. That's what we're talking about. All right, man. Sounds good. Always a blast. And we will be back next week breaking down these matchups and looking ahead to the rest of the season. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you later.